Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caroline Colas. I'm the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. Today on our Positive Psychology Hour, a series that we do in partnership with the Whole Being Institute, we're going to be talking about self-compassion for caregivers with Dianna, Collier. Are you feeling overwhelmed by caregiving during these challenging times? You are not alone. Parenting and caregiving is always filled with uncertainty and difficult emotions, but the past year has been especially intense. Many are struggling with burnout, and practicing self-compassion increases resilience and provides the emotional resources needed to care for ourselves and for others. As we join Dianna today, we're going to be learning about practical strategies and tools for tapping into the powerful resource of self-compassion to help support ourselves and others during these tough times. Dianna is a certified positive psychology coach, a licensed specialist in school psychology, and a personal renewal group facilitator. She leads groups and meets with clients in Austin, Texas, and online. Dianna has a passion for helping women develop self-compassion to tap into their strengths and discover the power of self-care. She is the mother of 15 and 16-year-old daughters, and we'll let you know how to contact Dianna. We'll put her website in the chat. Welcome to the call, Dianna. Please feel free to unmute yourself and I will spotlight you. And hi. So we were just talking a little bit earlier about Austin, Texas, and it's right now, we had snow this morning in Pennsylvania, and you said it was a little bit cold too?
Yes, we are on Texas cold, probably highs only in the 50s today, lows in the 30s, but gorgeous sun, so wonderful here. Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome to the call. Please tell us how you got to be affiliated with the Whole Being Institute. How did that happen?
Yeah, so about 6 years ago, after really being excited about what this positive psychology is all about, I signed up for the SIP program. I think it was the 4th iteration of it. And I found that really, really powerful. That was sort of my first taste of Whole Being Institute. And it motivated me to start the mothers group. And then later I did also go through the coach training program with Whole Being Institute. And
wonderful. And I think Phoebe told you that I just graduated in December. And next week, the next cohort does start. So everyone, if you are considering taking the certificate in positive psychology, I highly recommend it. I was saying I'm tempted to do it again because it was such a wonderful way to not only survive, but really thrive through the pandemic. It gave me so many tools and resources, and to be surrounded by such incredible educators and also people that I met from all over the world. It was really an amazing 9-month experience, and I highly recommend it. And I'll put something in the chat so that you can sign up for that. I know there's at least one person on the call who signed up and is going to be in the next cohort. So we're talking about self-compassion today. Fascinated by that. How did you come to this topic? How did this become fascinating for you, and what brought you to self-compassion?
Well, it was really in the midst of this SIP course that I took that it just introduced me to the concept of self-compassion. And they use words permission to be human a little bit too, but it's all the same kind of focus. And at the time when I entered the course, I was working as a stay-at-home mom, and my husband was traveling quite a bit, and my kids were not teenagers. They were a little bit younger. And I found myself personally struggling, and I would even call it touching burnout many times, particularly in the summer months when we were all together. And I picked up Kristen Neff's self-compassion book during that time and read that, and I thought, wow, this makes so much sense to me. This is practical. This is something I can use immediately in the moment. And that's really what sparked it. And then from there I went, and that's where I started to teach it to other moms and broaden. And it's not just about parenting, mind you, but that was my dip into it.
Beautiful. And we were talking earlier about this idea of caregivers, and that especially during the pandemic, we have to kind of form our own families, form our own friendships, form our own connections with people. And it's almost like we become caregivers unofficially as humans for other people. So
Yeah.
it's like everybody needs this skill set that you're talking about today.
Yes, yes. Caregiver, I mean, everybody really is a caregiver. In fact, even young children will often, function as caregivers to their friends. So, absolutely, this is all practical, even if you don't consider or think, oh, I'm not a caregiver, I'm not working as a nurse or a psychologist, or even I'm not a parent or whatever it is. You are caregiving to somebody. Or an animal, honestly. That too. Yeah. I had a very sick dog. It's real. So
yeah, awesome. So why don't we jump into, I know you have an amazing PowerPoint, and everyone, this call is recorded, and we will send out the recording, and we'll also make the PowerPoint available too. So let's jump into this topic. It's quite, I think everyone's going to find it very useful.
To start off with, I would actually just like to engage maybe through the chat just for this one. What words do you think of when you hear the word self-compassion? I'd love to hear where you guys are, what do you think of?
And we'll go ahead and write that question in the chat, and then go ahead and populate the chat, and we can read that aloud. Wow, great.
Tons. Being kind to myself, letting myself be human, loving self. Oh, all the, yes, kindness and self-care, forgiveness and accepting, vulnerability, yes. Taking care of my needs. I can't keep up with this chat, but yes. Wow, I can see that you guys really get the concept of self-compassion. Absolutely, because yeah, not being too hard on yourself. Taking the oxygen mask first, permission to be human. Oh yes, absolutely. So you guys are a crowd that really, really gets what self-compassion is. So I think I'm ready actually to go to the next slide, but we may not spend too much time on it. So self-compassion is not self-pity. It is not self-indulgence or shirking responsibility, decreasing motivation. I'm hearing from the chat that you guys are actually pretty aware of that and have a little general understanding of it. But I can just say, even those of us who've been practicing for a while need the reminder sometimes that that it really is a pro-social kind of tool that connects us to everybody and helps us to not just focus on ourselves, but focus on others and recognize how universal suffering is. I think I'm going to just go to the next slide though, and define what self-compassion is. And there are 3 elements: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. And these elements are the same actually if you're talking about compassion for others too. So this is directed self-compassion to yourself. In a general sense, self-compassion is really being a friend to yourself. And we'll go into these a little bit more in depth on the next slide. All right. So self-kindness versus self-judgment. In general, that's treating yourself with a gentle understanding instead of harsh criticism, and actively soothing and comforting yourself. Now, we all have an inner critic, and that is, or inner mean girl, you might even, I've heard that term too. And that inner critic is really trying to keep us safe. It is part of our threat defense system, that fight or flight, that where it comes from, but instead of, keeping us safe, it's actually hurting us quite a bit. It's turning the threat towards ourselves. And the good thing is that with self-kindness, you activate another biological process, which is the attachment affiliation system. So that is soothing yourself. It's really kind of the biological need to connect and get the support from others. And I'd like to do just a little exercise, and we don't have to be on the slide for this. Yeah, actually, I would say just take them off. To kind of demonstrate these two different things, I'd like everybody to make a strong fist with your hand and just hold it tight. This represents your inner critic, and you feel that tension, and then release it and put your hand over your heart. And take a moment, feel how that feels. That is the self-kindness. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to shift from a state of that tension, the tension that is created by the inner critic, to the softening of the self-kindness. And to go back to the slides, then the next element that I think is extremely important is the common humanity versus isolation. When we are suffering, and we all suffer as humans, it is a tendency to think it is just us. And it's not. There is no escape to suffering, and it's just part of life. It's part of being a human. And while people have different flavors of suffering, it's I think a very comforting idea, and to recognize how common this is. It's also particularly interesting right now because many of us are experiencing some very universal suffering brought on by the pandemic and a lot of unrest, certainly in the US, but not just in the US. And so the other aspect I think that's really important is understanding that imperfection is a part of life. And perfection is a myth. It really doesn't exist. And that's okay. That's fine. That's good. And then mindfulness, the third aspect, mindfulness versus over-identification. First of all, you have to be able to recognize, that you are suffering, but this is not getting lost in the suffering. So the mindfulness aspect is noticing it and not necessarily trying to change those painful feelings, but welcoming them and not getting lost in the storytelling of it, just noticing it. And yeah, so that is sort of like the general overview of what self-compassion is. So you've got the self-kindness, you've got the common humanity, and you've got the mindfulness. Let me know if there are any questions actually at this point before you go on. I don't know if there are any.
It doesn't look like there are any questions.
Okay, that is fine. Let's go to the next slide. So why do this self-compassion? Wow, there is so much research right now about self-compassion. Even Kristen Neff says she cannot keep up with it. And I'm certainly not Kristen Neff in my research background, but it is really amazing, the benefits. Increases in well-being, resilience, and health, decreases in depression and anxiety. And some of this is like reduction in shame, reduction in perfectionism, better relationships. And that's actually reported by other people in some of that research. Spouses saying that they notice improvements in relationships, less burnout for caregivers, more joy in the role of being a caregiver, increases in motivation and enhanced progress towards goals. What they found is that self-compassion lets us fail without being afraid to fail. So we set high goals still, but if we fail, we can respond with self-compassion, pick ourselves up, and go again. And so it's truly, truly amazing. That's really just a sample. In fact, health-wise, there are even quite a few physical health benefits too about that. My own personal experiences, that one of the benefits that I have found in my practice is that I'm able to sit with my own intense emotions more strongly and the intense emotion of those around me. I would say particularly my children. And in this time, my household right now is my husband and my two teenage daughters. Up until beginning of December, it also included our dear, very old dog, and she passed away. So we had a lot of pain associated with that, and self-compassion was very important for me to be able to be present with those emotions. And I think that that is an aspect that is very powerful now, because whether it's someone in your house or a friend that you're talking to on the phone, having the ability to not problem solve, not try and fix things, but to just sit there and be there with someone it's huge, and it's a huge gift to them. And self-compassion can help you with that.
Dianna, it seems like that's particularly difficult if we are triggered ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And that is exactly the time that you want to pull into these tools, because so I have, this is, well, I've got a daughter who today just turned 15, and she is passionate, we'll say. She's very passionate. She can say the most creative, ugly things, and she gives the best hugs. You know, there's, you know, space for both of that. And I have often, initially when I use this quite a bit in response to the "you're the worst mother" yellings, or "I hate you," the slam doors. She's more sophisticated now, probably, in her words that she chooses. And often I actually went into the bathroom and would be practicing some of this self-compassion, which then shored me up to go out there, and instead of, you know, engaging with the difficult situation, I felt calmer inside. Although that's not necessarily what will always happen. That was where I was, yeah.
And we were talking about the necessity of that, whether we are talking with our neighbors around politics or even
Yes.
around race and equity,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of being able to use self-compassion to stabilize so that we can hold the space for difference and for this variance in emotion.
Yes, absolutely. If you are feeling triggered and you're feeling angry, and this is not a judgment on it, I mean, this is a real thing. It's important to go, wow, this is really hard, to notice that, to recognize that this is hard for everybody. Probably whoever you are talking to right in front of, well, if they're in front of you. I think that it's key to be able to hold space for other people. Yeah. And I'd love to, let's just start go to an exercise that's, yes, it's time to do an exercise. So tools, the first tool that I'm going to teach is soothing touch, right? It's not complicated. It is soothing touch. And so one of the ways that you can most activate your care system and get endorphins and oxytocin and all these wonderful things in your body is through soothing touch. And while we may all miss some days where we're getting more hugs or soothing touch from others, we can provide this for ourselves, and that is super powerful. And I'd love to just go through some different types, because you may feel that one type of soothing touch really is strong for you and another isn't. And there are some situations where maybe if you're at home and don't have many people around, you can hug yourself, and rub yourself, but you may not feel like doing that in other circumstances. And there's a lot of options. So yeah, I would love for everybody to kind of just try these with me. If you're not comfortable being on video doing this, that's no biggie for any of these exercises, just to let you know. So how about the first one? Try just one hand on the heart. Notice, how does that feel? You might try another on top. And if that feels different, sometimes it's nice actually to have a fist under there and one on top, kind of a very firm support. You can even try rubbing or tapping. Assuming you're not in public where you can't touch your face, but you might want to gently cradle your cheeks, your chin, or stroke your cheek a little bit. You can try, you can't see my belly from here, but hands on belly might be a nice one too, or one on heart or belly. If you do yoga, you may be familiar with some of these. you can also just sort of like rub your hands, cup your hands in your lap. And as I mentioned before, you could just hug yourself. The other day, one I experimented with too, I was sitting in the car waiting to pick up my children, anticipating a difficult situation. And I just sort of rubbed my hands back and forth on my legs. So nobody who was in a car nearby was going to see me. It was just a private kind of soothing moment. And that's where soothing touch can be really helpful. You could be on a Zoom meeting and you can, rub your hands and people won't know. You can be in a car. You can be in front of the people who are triggering you and they don't know. Well, they might get wise if you live with them, but they won't know what you're doing. So I would love to hear what that experience of trying these soothing touch was like. What did you notice? What did you discover? Do you have a favorite? You could type in or you could unmute. I think.
Sure, I can go. I can start. I just noticed that, and why don't I'll take you off the spotlight for a moment, and we can see if anybody else wants to go talk. But for me, different areas feel differently. I get different if I'm touching here. That feels a different connection than when I'm touching my heart. Donna said I like tapping associated with Qigong. When I touch my hands to my heart, I feel myself taking a deep breath and calming down, said Ellen. I like the fist on the heart with the hand over fist for Rebecca. I loved the legs, says Paulina. And Donna Rich also mentioned that Reiki is soothing touch. It's one form of soothing touch too. The hug, missing not hugging my family. Yes, Elaine too, me too. I feel calm and present and in the moment. Yeah, Stephanie, beautiful sharing, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and that is like that's the simplest. That is like the simplest thing to incorporate throughout your day. And every day there's so many opportunities for this, especially now. Yeah. And then, so related to this, the soothing touch, you will find that sometimes one is better for you than others. And like the most used tool that I've used over the years is something called the self-compassion break. And this was created by Kristen Neff, and she has some video recordings, and Chris Germer, who works with her a lot, also has it. There's lots of beautiful recordings of that. And it's a very portable tool. I think, as I've mentioned before, I've been sitting on my toilet after dealing with a child doing it. I've done it out in a car. There's even, you can be adapted to even driving situations. And I just, yeah, it's the most portable. So I'd love to also step through and really work through a self-compassion break. I think that would be. And to do this, you're going to want to think of a time, a situation in your life that's causing you stress or discomfort. And if this is the first time that you are practicing self-compassion in particular, you may not choose like your most intense, because you're just trying to get a feel for the tool and how it may work. Although it's certainly up to you what you choose, and there's not going to be there's no force sharing at all ever on this. So think of a situation that is uncomfortable for you, distressful. It's something maybe that happened in the past week. Think about that. And I'm going to sort of lower my eyes a little bit. As we go into this, you may want to close your eyes. You may want to lower your eyes. I'm teaching it as a meditation, but know that this is a tool that you can do when you're actually moving around people in your head. But for this practice, yeah. So think about that situation, and you're going to need to let in a little bit of that suffering, and notice what it feels like in your body. Notice that discomfort and any sort of emotions that pop up. Notice without judging. Everything is welcome. And say to yourself, whatever words sound right, that this is a moment of suffering. And you're going to want to, find words that feel meaningful to you. So it might be, wow, this really hurts. This is painful. This is tough. Ow. Sometimes it's just, oh, ow, wow. I'm feeling, so much overwhelm right now. And then incorporating the next step, though, that suffering is a part of life. This is the common humanity. And other people feel this way. I'm not alone in this. This is a part of being a human. We all struggle in life. Our struggles may look different, but we all struggle. And in fact, often many people are feeling actually the same type of struggle that you are right now. And then find the soothing touch, maybe the one that felt best to you today. Add that soothing touch right now, because you're acknowledging that you are in pain, that this situation is a very hard and painful situation, but you're not alone. And may I be kind to myself in this moment. That's what you want to find words that are meaningful to you. Some other examples might be, may I give myself the compassion that I need? May I accept myself as I am? May I forgive myself? You may want to think about language a good friend uses with you if you are particularly struggling with this. So it could be, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I care about you. It might be that they're using a diminutive, oh, honey, I'm so sorry, or oh, sweetie, or your name even. That might feel good. The words you use are completely up to you and will probably vary. So you just want to notice that and say, wow, this is hard. I'm not alone. And I deserve some compassion and love. Oh, honey, I'm here for you. And as you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them or raise your gaze and come back. So this is really my most, like I said, I mean, lately I've been using it every day practice. So I would love to hear from people what their personal experience of it was, if anyone is willing to share how it felt to do a self-compassion break, if it was hard.
Sure, I can start a little bit. I noticed that my hand, I started with like the fist, with the hand over the heart, and then I felt like it needed to open. So it was a very alive practice. Jill said, I found that the fist on my heart helps relax my shoulders too. Rebecca, I don't hear my voice in my head. I hear my best friend's voice telling me I'm okay. It actually made me tear up just now.
And tears are very normal too. That's a wonderful release. Yes.
The combo of the kind words and rubbing my legs was very soothing, said Wendy. Yeah. And soothing is the goal here. Kate was wondering if you could speak more about the endorphins in response to soothing touch.
Yes. Yeah. So the ways, I guess the couple ways to most activate that that soothing, the endorphins are soothing touch, also vocalizations too. So you might actually, if you're by yourself, you could actually speak out loud the soothing, calming words too on top of that to really increase. I think that I'll be honest, I'm not like from a medical background, so I'm not going to be able to give you the particular science of it, but it's sort of the same effect of, getting a massage or something like that, but you give it to yourself, the soothing touch.
Yeah.
It really just, helps us to feel less pain, and chronic pain patients actually feel less pain when they practice the self-compassion.
And then Stephanie was saying, I feel connected and filled with hope. Keep on thinking the phrase, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
Love is with us and in us. And then Van said something interesting, which I also felt too. It says, it felt really good. It felt a bit awkward to tell myself, oh, honey, it's going to be okay. It's easier to say those kind of things to someone else than myself in some ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? Did you find that true, Dianna, for you when you first started this practice?
Yes, I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. You're right, especially if you haven't been doing it a lot. It is awkward at first because we aren't used to that. And I think a doorway into that is thinking about how you would expect, respond to a friend in distress. What would you say to them? And try offering it to you, and be present with that awkwardness and acknowledge that this is a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe I feel a little bit silly, doesn't feel quite right. I also would say that if you want to try different words, I'm giving you suggestions, but you don't have to use any of those. You can write your own.
And I loved what Rebecca said. She says, I don't really hear my voice. I hear the voice of my best friends telling me I'm okay. That's another way around that too. And then Paulina said, wonderful. I'm a family therapist and I meditate, but I was missing a practice of what we are talking about so much during sessions. So thank you for turning the focus to the person. And Phoebe was saying, the oxytocin is also part of this as well. And Elaine said, so used to being compassionate to others, but to be to ourselves is another thing. And then Donna was saying, loving reflexology is a form of massage and healing too. And again, Stephanie, using loving kindness meditation during this helps as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is a practice too. And with loving kindness meditation, directing it to yourself and to others is very wonderful.
Do you think also, Dianna, with the negativity bias of the brain, that we're not really used to saying sort of positive things to ourselves? We're actually kind of used to criticizing ourselves, and that in some ways, in some strange ways, that feels more normal, if that is a term, than it is to just be gracious. And in fact, that sometimes people are afraid if I'm too kind, I won't get anything done.
Yes, absolutely. And that is our go-to, is the criticism, actually. So that's why it takes a little extra work to do the compassion, because the go-to, and it's part of our survival instinct, is to do that. In fact, one of the ways that you can kind of work with your inner critic, which is there too, is to recognize that although the words are not very nice that you often say to yourself, and personally, I've never had anybody say anything as ugly to me as what I've said to myself. So I get that. But your inner critic in that is actually trying to take care of you. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I hear you. I hear you're worried. I'm, let's say I ate too many brownies the other night. I hear that you're worried about me. You're wanting me to be taken care of. And what I hear you, I know you want to take care of me, and that this is a better way I can be kind to myself. So that's a technique too for working with some of that. And you're never going to be always self-compassionate. I think it's important to recognize that this really is a practice. You can't really, you'll catch yourself the more you do it, and then hopefully respond with that kindness.
And it's amazing though, because research shows that when we are more compassionate, we actually are more productive. We are more successful. We are more willing to try new things and take bigger risks. So it's this counterintuitive thing where we want to be hard on ourselves in a way, or we're used to that, but it's almost an upgrade to
Yes.
say, wait a minute, I'm going to recognize how I'm feeling and the message that I'm getting from my brain, and then I'm going to shift it to a compassionate, so that I have that broaden and build that Barbara Fredrickson's talking about. I have access to an expanded outlook, and then I can make different choices.
Yes, yes, and I love that very much, especially because this time of year, I think research shows that a lot of people are giving us their New Year's resolutions about this time, and what a beautiful time to bring in that self-compassion and then rebuild, retry. If the critic is, oh, I didn't do that, I failed, that's it. But I think if you have your inner wise voice that you're listening to, that compassionate self, it's like, wow, I really wanted to, that didn't work. What next? What do I need? Maybe there's a more reasonable goal. And that's what I think the research is showing too, is you get to go back and you're not destroyed by failure. You go back and you start again.
Yeah, it reminds me of activating the hope circuitry, in Don Tomasulo's work, which is like, okay, I'm going to reassess and reevaluate. I know that there's obstacles. I'm going to, and then get into action, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is a wonderful skill also to model for our children around you, by the way, too. It's not something that really has been taught, and there is that huge fear of failure, but yeah, we can create that hope and the momentum and encourage each other too, going through that.
Great. And I know you have more for us to look at, so I'm going to let you go back to the slides.
Yeah. Let's see. So the next practice that I have listed, we've got the soothing touch we've done and self-compassion break, is a practice that Kristen Neff developed called Compassion with Equanimity. And that practice was specifically developed for caregivers to deal with burnout. I happened to I got super lucky and was in a workshop of hers. Before now, you can find recordings of her leading this and Chris Germer, and it's in some more recent books. But I got to hear kind of firsthand when she was first sharing it. And I find it an extremely powerful practice. It is a little bit of a longer meditation, and it doesn't have to be a meditation. So the way that the tools are taught here are sort of in that meditation perspective, but there's always a way to adapt it in the moment. So it's really meant for caregivers to be used in the absolute moment. And then this is a practice that I've used versions of, say, as I mentioned, our dog passed away, and near the end, she was very sick, and there were many, many mornings where I was spoon feeding her very slowly and doing some very hands-on nursing. And even in a situation like that, but even though it was developed for caregivers, it's just a really wonderful practice for when you're having any relationship difficulty, which I'm pretty sure that includes everybody. Having tough situations, and as I think was mentioned earlier, you could use this if it's dealing with perhaps in your family there's difference in political views. This is a practice they'll teach to deal with compassion for how to include in compassion for yourself with compassion for others. I think maybe I should probably give examples more later and actually lead you through the practice so you have any idea what I'm talking about. This practice is going to take, I would say this is like a solid 8-minute practice. So this is a little bit more intense. This is sort of probably the most intense of the practices that I will teach. And you are very, very welcome to, like I said, turn off the video if that makes you feel comfortable. Otherwise, get yourself just kind of settled and comfortable. I'm gonna I will look down. I will look down and lower my eyes for this practice. So to start, just get yourself comfortable and let's take just a few deep breaths to settle in to the present moment. So breathing in and out. I love to breathe out through pursed lips. It's very calming. And we are going to have to practice this. Pull up a situation or somebody that you are caring for, or who is exhausting you, frustrating you. Maybe somebody you care about who is suffering. This could be a caretaking situation, but it could just be somebody that you interact with. And if you have several candidates right now, lots of people coming up, that's okay. You want to pick just one for the exercise, and you can return and do this again with someone else or a different situation. I recommend that you might not choose the most complicated, intense relationship if this is new to you in particular. The exercise is beautiful for those relationships too, but for practicing, you want to pick a painful, kind of hard situation, but maybe not your maximum right now. So bring to mind this person and visualize the person in this caregiving situation or this really hard situation. Just visualize it in your mind. Feel that struggle in your body. Notice the pain that you're feeling. Think about the details. What's going on? And as you think about this person, I'm going to read some words and just let them gently roll through your mind. We are each on our own life journey. I am not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even though I wish I could. Moments like this are difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can. And aware of the stress you're carrying in your body, inhale fully and deeply, drawing compassion inside your body and filling every cell of your body. You might view this compassion, visualize it as a warm golden light, breathing that in to your body. You may want to add some soothing touch if you haven't already. Let yourself be soothed by inhaling deeply and by giving yourself the compassion that you need. And as you exhale, send out compassion to the person who is associated with your discomfort. And continue breathing compassion in for yourself and out for the other person. Allowing your body to find a natural rhythm with your breathing. You don't need to do anything differently with the breath. Let your body just breathe itself, breathing in compassion for yourself, breathing out compassion for the other. One for me, one for you. In for me, out for you. And occasionally, scan your inner landscape for any distress you may be feeling and respond by inhaling that compassion for yourself into that part of your body. And then exhale that compassion for the other. And you might find that you need some extra compassion here. It's very possible that your pain in dealing with this very difficult, hard situation is really strong and it is calling to you. And so in that case, you want to breathe some extra breaths for yourself. Bring in more compassion for yourself, which is okay. So focus your attention and your breath more in that direction, breathing in the compassion for yourself. And it might be that you also feel like it could be right to send out a little bit more compassion to the person who is suffering, person that you are caring for, and that's okay too. You can send out extra exhales of compassion for that person, but always grounded in your own personal compassion for yourself. So first, compassion for yourself, and then the other. Let yourself float on an ocean of compassion. There is no limit to the compassion. There's enough for everybody, for yourself and the other, in and out. And all this compassion, this ocean of compassion, embraces all suffering. And take in these words once again. We are each on our own life journey. I am not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even though I wish I could. Moments like this are difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can. Now we're going to start to let go of this practice and allow yourself to be exactly as you are in this moment. You do not need to change, correct, or solve this situation. And all your feelings are okay. That's part of being human. And you can let go for the moment of the situation. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes or look up. If you are ready, you can turn on your video if you have turned it off. Yeah, so this practice for me, when I first heard it, brought me to tears. Although it is true that sometimes I've heard Kristen Neff and Chris Grimmer say sometimes you shouldn't focus on your child because it's complicated. I think a lot of relationships, whether you're caring for a parent, your spouse, a client, they can all be pretty complicated. And tears are normal whenever you are releasing some of that. But this is, although the words that I read are maybe you don't have them memorized, the practice of breathing in and out compassion for yourself and for others is something you can really practice in the moment in a situation. Whether in the exact moment you're caring for somebody, you know, that breathing in and out compassion, and it will regulate your nervous system. And if you're in close contact, I'm not 100% sure if it's, I think it helps over Zoom too, but but definitely if you're in close contact, that regulation of your nervous system passes on to those around you. Kristen Neff gives an example when her son was a baby, and her son has autism, and he was crying and on a plane. And there was really nothing that she could do after she tried everything. And then in the end, she just was breathing in and out that compassion, giving herself the compassion. And that got her through the moment. I don't remember exactly if her son calmed in that moment, but I think in general, we often see that is there's a calming another too. And I can talk later a little bit about how I've used this more, but I would love to hear how it felt, how that exercise felt. And Caroline, you're welcome to start, or somebody else.
Sure. We did have someone whose hand was raised, but they're
Great.
not on video, which is fine.
Okay.
It's Kathy from, oh, there you go, Kathy. Do you want to unmute? There you go.
Am I unmuted? I really like this one a lot. And I think I was taking notes during it. I was missing one sentence, I believe. It said, we are each on our own journey, and I'm not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely my responsibility. And what was the sentence after that before I might help if I can? I think there was a sentence.
Yeah. So right. It's even though nor is it entirely within power or responsibility to make it go away, even though I wish I could.
Even though I wish I could.
Yes. And then moments like this are difficult to bear. And you can write your own words of this too. I love these words, but it doesn't have to be an exact. And then the yet I still may try to help.
I like that whole thing. I like that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And I used to carry that on a note card in my purse with me around so yeah, I love them too.
It'd be good to type that in the chat if we could. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will say that this can be referenced. I'll make sure you know where to reference too.
We also said, Vance said this, it was startling how much I identified with the phrase, I'm not the source of this person's suffering. And we will make sure that everyone has that. Self-compassion above the link is to Dr. Neff's practices. So it's right there, practice 3, self-compassion for equanimity by Dr. Neff. If you just scroll up in the chat, you can click on that, everyone.
Yes, and she has like a YouTube video type of, I think it takes probably about 9 minutes of her leading it. And then there's also one on Chris Germer's website, which is, I've got that listed at the end too. And he has sort of a much longer kind of different, you can take a lot of time or a little less time with this practice. So, any other, well, I guess Leah, I need to be paying attention to time, don't I?
Yeah, that's all right. We have one more practice. Love the idea that this can pass on to a person near you, says Jill.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'll just say, like, you know, obviously, I think that the crowd that I was sitting in when I heard this was made up primarily of therapists, but this is really any caretaking situation. And I think, you know, talking to a grieving friend, you know, anybody who is experiencing distress, even if that's not your, you know, it's just any moment really like that where you're caretaking. And yeah, and the websites, that I do have listed in their resources. In fact, they all link to practices. I double check to make sure, but there's a lot of beautiful recordings of this, and many, many others too. So I've kind of given you a lot of that meditation focus, but looking at the tools. So this another really biggie to keep us, because we have this negativity bias and it's very easy to forget to practice self-compassion. It's important to prime our environment, and positive psychology really shows us that this has a huge effect. And if you are at my house, I'm not actually right where my computer usually is. I have little sticky notes all over the place, and all these things posted, and I've got quotes and poetry and that inspire self-compassion and other things. And I highly recommend, you know, that sort of thing. I will end with a quote, but I have tons of this stuff myself too, and you can always email me if you would like some ideas. I have some poetry. I've got some, I mean, I didn't write it. I've collected some poetry and quotes. And a fun way also to incorporate is with music. Make a self-compassion playlist and listen to it regularly, or after you've had a hard day, any moment. I think it can be a lot of fun. I have my own personal one. Music is a very individual sort of thing, but I'm happy that's another thing. If you wanted to email for ideas, I'd be happy to share it. Besides Whole Being Institute, which has profoundly influenced my practice and what I do with mothers and in coaching, I also have a mentor, and you may be familiar with her work, Renee Trudeau, who's a life and career coach. And she leads mothers group. That's where I got my group kind of start from. And she recommends putting pictures of yourself as a child, preferably before the age of 10, so little before you're hitting adolescence, because that can really, if you look at yourself when you're young, sometimes it's easier to look at that picture of baby you and give compassion than it is to our adult self. So I have a picture of myself I have a mirror in my closet, and I have a picture of myself from about 3 years old there, kind of a reminder if I'm looking in the mirror to treat myself with compassion, because I would never want to treat my little 3-year-old self the way that I might my adult self. And then to also, you can make or buy a self-compassion reminder bracelet. I have I have a little bitty, it's kind of like, I don't know how well it shows up, but braided sparkly thread. And that is, I used to do these when I could meet in person with groups. We would make them together and wear them. But it could be as simple as a little thread. It could be a piece of yarn, or it could be lovely. There's a lot of jewelry company and people who are making gorgeous jewelry, and you could, you know, certainly treat yourself with a reminder bracelet of sorts. Those are just sort of the ideas for priming your environment. And okay. And on the resource page, which, since you'll get a copy of it, there are all three of the websites that are listed have practices, but also like very in-depth amounts of resources that you can, if you're fascinated, you want to learn more about the science behind it, or more practices, journaling activities. They actually have some free guided live self-compassion practices going on that they started during the pandemic too. I cannot tell you the times there, but there's a lot of different times. And this is a quote that I think really speaks to me. We don't give ourselves compassion in order to feel better. Instead, we give it because we feel bad. The burden doesn't always get lighter, but the back gets stronger, by Kristen Neff. And I think that is kind of the idea of it. Whether you feel better in the moment, it doesn't matter actually. You're not doing it just for that. It's the long-term benefits. And then I don't know that we even, is that our time? I was hoping to have a little bit of time for breakout rooms, but it may not work. It doesn't look like it. So, but if there's something that sparked interest for you in this practice, or you're thinking how you might use it, if there is there a couple minutes for people to type in?
Second, sure, absolutely. And I'm going to just remove the spotlight for a sec so we can come back. I also put into the chat, if anyone's interested in the Whole Being Institute's new cohort, we have that happening. I believe that's next week, and you can sign up for that. And you can receive $100 off with the coupon code JCC100. And we have a virtual giving circle. They actually donate part of your tuition back to the JCC, which is wonderful. Yes, Lois, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Rena says, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Kate, thank you so much. I learned that self-compassion is strong. As a strong back and an open heart, this was great. Valerie said, I've done SIP. It's a great training and experience. I highly recommend it. Thank you for this. I'm so happy I joined today. And someone else was saying, thanks, Dianna, for this much needed compassionate hour. I will use these tools and be more present when needed. And Bunny was mentioning that she only has one child photo of herself. Strange, she thinks. And then Jessica was saying, when my husband was really sick, I had Karana, the Sanskrit word for compassion. I'm probably saying that wrong, especially self-compassion, tattooed on my inner wrist. Beautiful, Jessica.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And just lots of thank yous to you, Dianna. It's really been wonderful to have this as part of our series. As Phoebe was mentioning, we haven't done a lot on self-compassion, and it's just so nice. Don't you think, you guys, to just have that 8-minute and some of the practices and actually go through them? I'm seeing lots of, thumbs up and heads up and waves and namaste hands. So please join us next week. We have an amazing lineup again. I wanted to let you know what that is. Phoebe is telling me we've got, we're going to talk for Groundhog Day. We're going to be talking with Jane Anderson about strengths and how to use them and lean into them. And then on Thursday, Mega and I are going to come back and we're going to be talking about love. February is the month of love. So it's amazing that you're starting us out, Dianna, with compassion and love for self, because we're going to dive deep into Barbara Fredrickson's work with Broadening and Build with Mia and Let Your Yoga Dance. So next week should be really fun. I hope some of you have some amazing plans for the weekend. You can tell me what they are so I can live vicariously through you. This weekend, Winnie Zeeb and I will be teaching a Nia class at noon. And you're all welcome to join. We're going to be doing the routine called Together, and it's really a lot of fun. So please join us. Please consider the SIP program. Dianna, thank you. Would you like to read your final quote? I think it's so beautiful.
The final quote. Sure. One more time. Let's see.
Yeah.
I
think Phoebe had to pop off.
So. She did. I've got it in here right in front of me too.
Yeah, I just think it's nice to
I love it. Yeah, we don't give ourselves compassion in order to feel better. Instead, we give it because we feel bad. The burden doesn't always get lighter, but the back gets stronger. Kristen Neff. Absolutely. And I would love to hear from any of you guys too. And with more quotes, I can give you more.
I'm emailing you for quotes for sure. And I know Joanne probably is too. Anybody else? Yes, I hear some. Yes, Lois and Stephanie. And all right, everyone, take care of yourselves. You're precious to us, right? And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.